across the board is because you all got into comics for different reasons. What were the comics that influenced you growing up, and why did you decide, hey, this is something I want to do for myself?
Are we going over?
Whoever wants it. Via, you're first.
Just because she has a meeting. I got into comics long before I could read. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in the Lower East Side when it was Alphabet City. Yeah, that's right. That's where Steve Rogers is actually from. You heard it from me. He's one of ours. And my mom was a single mom, and so whenever she went to like a bodega or whatever, she would take us along. And there was a little Korean bodega by the spot, and they had like a spinner rack of comics, which anyone under 25 is not going to know what a spinner rack is, but and on it,
It scrolls. The shit just.
for a second I thought you said it's a scroll, and I was like, I mean, sure, like that's. But on it, I remember walking over and being bored and seeing an issue of Wonder Woman where she was just doing her Wonder Woman thing and wearing the Puerto Rican flag, and an issue of X-Men with Bishop and Storm on the cover. And I remember really just thinking, I'm Puerto Rican and black, and yeah, that's right, we exist, as Into the Spider-Verse has proved.
Because clearly you didn't exist before that movie.
People forgot. But I thought that Wonder Woman was Puerto Rican because she looked like one of my cousins and she was wearing a Puerto Rican flag. I was like, ooh, Mom. She was like, yeah, she comes from an island of like powerful women. And I was like, oh, bet, like Puerto Rican, cool. And so those were my two first comics that I can remember actively kind of like pointing at and getting, and I couldn't read them, but I would make up the stories and look at them over and over and over again. So to me, comics started around, even though I was wrong about Wonder Woman. She broke my heart 10 years later when I was like 16, which is way too late to believe in that she's Puerto Rican. But she says Ola all the time, so. But anyway, that's what got me into them, and to me, that medium was always something that brown people existed in. You know what I mean? Which is very rare. You didn't watch TV, especially back in the 80s and 90s, and there was one kind of brown person, and that was it. But I got to see, you know, Storm and Bishop, and to me, Wonder Woman, be heroes and save people, and I was like, oh, I like that. That's what I want to do. So.
I got into comics when my father would read the Sunday Funnies to me. I would make him read it like cover to cover, even Kathy. Even Kathy.
Said even Kathy.
He said, "You sign for?" I really want to read this? Like, yes, Daddy, read it to me. I'd be so excited. He's like, okay. Like, I will read you Kathy. I will read you Gasoline Alley. Like, I'll read you whatever you want.
Wow.
And then from there, we would, I know anything about this 35-year-old woman in midlife crisis, right? About 4 years old.
Look, they still stuck on the spinning rack, so you bring up comments that they never heard.
But from there, everybody, Archie and Ted and Bronca, and then my brother was like, well, you need to know about X-Men. And he'd get X-Men Classic for me, and then I started just asking for the books when I would go out with my mom to the supermarket, and my mother was like, why in the world? So my father's talking about Kathy, mommy's looking through X-Men like, what is this? What is this? They're like, don't worry about it, I like it. So that's how I got started, and I just continued to want more and more, and then I would draw out my little characters. I started like my sketchbooks like when I was 9 years old. And that's how I created some of those characters, and just continued with it, and then got to high school, that's where I created the Rippers. I created the Rippers when I was 16, 17, and then I never looked back. Woo.
So I started late in the game. I started reading comics in college, which was about 10, 13 years ago. Although they were always around me, my late Uncle Barry was a huge influence. He was a huge comic fanboy. I like vaults of, comics. Took me to my first Comic-Con when I was little. So it was inevitable, basically. But I started reading since I was in college. I think I grew towards the more mature comics. So I went to Vertigo, Sandman, Invisibles, which is super weird. But that kind of gave me a taste of what else was out there. And Transmetropolitan, and then I kind of went to a lot of the Image stuff. but I love anime, so I went to manga, and manga is a huge influence for me. I love slice of life, shoujo, shonen.
Well, your publishing company is called Jose.
It is. It's like black women comics. I love like comics that are for like adult women. So I really was drawn towards Josei, like the Josei genre, which is for adult women. So that's some of my huge influences. I really like Inio Asano, who did Goodnight Queen, Kyoko Ozaki, who did Helter Skelter and Pain. And I also love like My Hero Academia and all that good stuff. So yeah, plus Ultra.
She was like, yay, plus Ultra. All kinds of people love My Hero Academia. I mean, it's an amazing origin story.
We can make this full panel.
I know. I feel a tangent coming on.
You'll have to stop me. So yeah, manga is a huge influence for me, and that kind of inspired me to write my own comics. I really like slice of life, and so that's what I watched today. Slice of life.
Awesome. Okay, so we should just come at the same time, and one convince the other. Oh no. We grew up drawing because our mom started teaching us how to draw, and like Regine, it was Sunday comics, the newspaper, reading Kathy's grown stories and Family Circus, Peanuts. Back where we're from, there's an African American artist by the name of Maury Turner, who recently passed away in Oakland, California, that was a big influence on us too. And so we grew up with a language between like my mom, Shanae, myself, of like drawing and like, Shanae and I like competing with like shading and things like that, like who could do things better. We were selling comics before we even had a language, or the formats or anything like that. And just that being a language that we, that was a communication between us and our mom, and then eventually in school and being editors on the school newspaper, we did a lot of comics and things there, and then it just transitioned into animation, which we did while we were working in film school. So it was just, what did we do? Powerpuff Girls was big at the time. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Sugar and spice.
Like back in the day, that's how I got fight.
Oh, yeah.
So we did a take on that aired in Oakland, the OUSD channel back on public cable. It was called the Afro Puff Girls. And there were Peaches, Pumpkin, and Precious. People still come up to us, about that like back in the day. I'm sorry, I still want to see that comic. Yeah, right. It's available. It'll be like low, the dimensions, like super low quality, but it's out there. But just that language that we created between ourselves, and then that we use to communicate with, with our larger community and become supported in that. That's just how we've been, existing since then, since we were little girls, and it's working okay. And I think for us, like when we were drawing and telling stories, our mom was also a single parent mom. I mean, she made sure that we had the tools, like we always had paper, we always had sketchbooks and all sorts of stuff. And I mean, that was a way for us to, we entertained ourselves first, you know what I mean? Sometimes we weren't even watching TV, we were just busy like creating stuff to just make ourselves laugh and all that stuff. Yeah, it was just a way for us to express ourselves, and we had fun, and we're still having fun now, which is amazing after all those years. Now, there's a difference between including a black female or femme or LGBTQ character in a story and actually writing one from experience. Can you each describe a comic that you created and how your voice makes it unique, or how you feel your voice makes it unique? And Vita, you're gonna have to pick one.
I'll go last. Let's start on the other end.
So I base it off of my friends and myself and my own experiences. That's how I kind of make sure that I feel like it's authentic. How do my friends talk to each other? Even when they're talking, like they're in the crowd and they're kind of like, am I in the comic? they really want to be in my comic. But there's like moments and interactions that I think are really great, and I would love to illustrate or have illustrated in comics and shown in comics, because I want to show the experience and the interactions between people of color in comics in an authentic way. You can really tell when it's like a white guy who like is googling what's the new slang and just adding like lit in the wrong place.
Right. Hold on.
To be fair, I don't know
You see
slang.
lit or fleek, I know there's a problem.
But like, also like, I'm getting old, so I don't know what these kids are saying
You're
anymore.
right.
So like, is this French?
My age. What my friends are saying, so that's how I just look around me.
I have the same thing with my books. I mean, in general, I like to say that most of the main characters have a little bit of me in it. Some aspect of my
Wait a minute,
personality.
even ice cream? Because damn.
Cameron, you should already know that. You should know. If anybody's familiar with that book.
Because she is not playing in that book, and she tears through some people.
Yeah, that's me. That
It's
is.
like, you heard that, your boy.
If you know me, and especially if you're a member of Women in Comics, the members know how hard I fight. Like, I fight for myself, but I fight for my members. So that's definitely reflected in that series, because she's the first issue, she's looking for her baby, and she's flipping out. She is flipping out. She's losing her mind, and I mean, I don't necessarily do that, but things are done when they're necessary. So I definitely put parts of myself, and I have a little bit of people that I know. In the series, The Rippers, issue 2 has a conversation with the main character and her mother, and that's definitely me and my mom. Absolutely, both like two similar personalities but different, arguing but still respecting each other as they walk away. So that's definitely me and mom.
How about you?
I think for me, especially the main characters of my creator and stuff, I am examining a viewpoint, and usually the main character's viewpoint, and whoever they're juxtaposed against are two questions that I have in my own mind. And so the way that I kind of keep it authentic is by kind of showing the struggle that I'm having internally on the page. And I think that for me, one of the reasons that my main characters tend to be, brown and queer is because I'm working through stuff, and I want to show what I'm working through in a way that hopefully kind of engenders empathy in people. And so I think that that's where my authenticity comes in. I mean, I'm not always exactly like my main characters, right? But like the parts of me that I'm being vulnerable with are there. So yeah.
For us, I think we sort of write the kind of stories that we wanted to see when we were kids. We grew up a lot, consuming a lot of like Spielberg animation, and in the 80s and 90s, like we were always seeing stories where like boys were having amazing adventures, and white boys mainly, and we would watch them and we would love them. E.T., the Explorers, everything that Spielberg made and all sorts of stuff. But you're kind of watching as outsiders, and we just have to like kind of put ourselves into the story. Like, yeah, I'm on the bike too, with E.T. in the back. Okay, I'm in the back. It's like I'm not on screen, but I gotta like interject myself. I gotta put myself into the story so that I can enjoy it too. So I think as young Black women, we were sort of watching as outs, knowing that we were outsiders, but also wanting to enjoy the adventure too. And so a lot of our stories, our first webcomic, Fashion Forward, which was a time travel adventure, you'll see like an adventure, you'll see girls doing things that we hadn't seen them do before. Our first web animated cartoon was adopted by aliens, so we just wanted to see a Black girl like flying in a spacecraft, you know what I mean? And she was from the hood, and she was like, she didn't know where her parents, she was an orphan, you know what I mean? And these are the kind of kids who just sometimes don't get to have those adventures. And even with the invention of E.J. Whittaker, which is a steampunk story set in the early 1900s, we were just like, we never get to see like Black women in Victorian pieces. I mean, normally when you're talking about the 1900s and black women, everybody's just like, oh, post-slavery, like people are sad, and it's like, no, people were also being brilliant and going to HBCUs and like becoming doctors.
Yeah, that's what's fantastic about your comic is because a lot. Someone was asking me like, it's so cool to see this fantasy world where black women in the 1800s were studying to be doctors. I'm like, that's not fantasy.
But it's also like, I think that black people were invented in 1985. Like it's just like, it was just slavery, and then we were affected by aliens, and then we came back. And it's just like, no, we were there, we built towns, and like, there's a lot of struggle. It's like, we're just struggling.
It would be happy.
Yeah. So, I mean,
It's like slavery and then boondocks.
right.
There's something in
Exactly. It's like a whole like a century in between.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean for us. Like the early 1900s has been a time period that really hasn't been explored for like black stories. It's like you might. I mean, if you're lucky, you're gonna get the Harlem Renaissance. You know, before you get to the civil rights, movement. But yeah, we want to explore that time period and definitely tell that story from a black woman's perspective. And I mean, the other thing is that you would think that the struggles that she had are antiquated. You know what I mean? But today we're struggling, not even struggling, but there are times when we're like negotiating for ourselves or, speaking up for pay that we deserve in these workspaces and these spaces, or we're, we got Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and we have real issues with gender, boxes that are placed around us as African American women in particular. And this story, even though it was over 100 years ago, there's a lot that is echoed, in what's happening with us today in the spaces that we work with. And
one of the things too, like, that I love about that is that, like, you hear a lot of, like, oh, but we've already told stories in that time. It's like, no, but we weren't there. Like, I got a lot of that with The Wilds. They were, fair enough, like, oh, we're in a post, like, Walking Dead and post-Romero world. I'm like, where are the black people? Like, how about we have a choice now?
Well, all the black people in Walking Dead are the actual zombies.
No, all the black people made it out. I'm retconning that. We all made it out. We were like, look at them running around and killing each other. Got that.
But see, what was so amazing about the Wilds is that your zombies throw flowers. Their skin doesn't fall off. They just start
They're
growing.
scarier to me because, one of the things that we wanted to explore in that, because that's right, zombies have been done, steampunk has been done. Well, what would it be like to be in a world, again, through this perspective of kind of like femme and queer and brown? Oh, well, the dangers that you face are not always the most, like, obvious. Like, we talk about, racism all the time. It's like people think that it's just this one thing where people are running around in hoods and like that is ugly, but like it's not just those ugly things, it's those little microaggressions. It's not being able to be in the stories. It's being told, well, why would we need a steampunk story with black people? Like, we told steampunk, well, because now you have a choice.
Right, and it's frustrating when you get those descriptions in some of those comics, because we got like, what, 10 Iron Men, and we're getting, a fifth Ghostbusters movie? Like, those things can be rebooted and redone, but all you're trying to do is one story based on one thing. In many of the stories that you write, they're not always all black women. How do you write for the other? Are you writing white characters and other characters into your stories, or are you only writing your stories about black women? Or LGBTQ characters? Or, how do you write for the other, I'll say?
Well, I do, but I think it's always about resonating with another person. Like, we're human beings at the end of the day, and if you can't identify with the human condition, something's wrong with you. That's just as a person-to-person thing. When you see someone in pain, you see a physical wound on somebody, oh my God, that must hurt. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Like, I can imagine how it hurts. And I know someone in the room probably has flinched when they've seen something that's just so, like, off-putting, or gross. You see some type of foot hanging off or something on the TV. It's like, oh my God, you win. It's the same thing when you're creating characters. I think you should do research. You should talk to people who are either outside of your race, or who, if I'm heterosexual, I'll speak to a queer person. But at the same time, we're human beings. So for me, maybe for me, it's just obvious. But I've also been in the position of like having panels and hosting panels, and some male will come up and ask and say, well, how do you write female characters? I'm like, are you kidding? Like, what kind of question is that?
But is that because as Black women we're used to thinking for everybody in the room?
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
You never know. Let's be fair though. Like,
No.
I think that there are some.
You got exclusive next
Yeah. I love Guys Switch so much. But I think that we are expected, not just as brown people, but just there are different levels of empathy that are expected for different people, right? And it doesn't mean that you're not capable of empathy if it's not expected of you. In fact, I know many people who are in that position who are very empathetic, right? But I mean, the answer is yes, but also we are asked to be Elliot on that bicycle, even though he was out after dark, so I don't believe that's a Black person at all. Well, we're expected to, we were asked forever, since Homer, to put ourselves into those shoes, so we practice that. It's a muscle. Go to the gym, do the work. Like you said, research, but also respect, right? Like, when I'm writing characters that are different from me, whether they be Black or East Asian or South Asian or, white or whatever, that whatever their experiences that ain't mine, like, gotta be respectful. No one's saying you can't write people that are different than you. You can write about people that are different than you can't write from, but like, just watch a movie and talk to people that are different than you.
I mean, it's true, and then, as a creator, like, these are your babies, you know what I mean? Like, you're creating them. Like, if I can create a character, I gotta get in their head, I have to sympathize with them, I have to love them, I have to get mad at them, you know what I mean? I have to, whatever I have to do to, like, bring them to life in a real way that resonates with people. And if you were like, if you call yourself a creator and you like, you can't get into the head of your character, then you're doing the character a disservice. You know what I mean? And even if you have to do some research, watch a YouTube video. You know what I mean? Like, get out
Yeah, the internet, so helpful.
Yeah.
Google is free. Yeah, it's just this thing. Yeah, it's so strange when people are like, I have no idea where you found that information. I'm like, the same way you found the address to this building. Google. Like, I don't. We're gonna take some questions soon, not just yet. So if you have a question, if you can make your way to one of these two mics here. One of my last questions is, how does social media inform your work? Outside of promotions, how does it offer you or affect your storytelling at all? Like, are you literally looking at Twitter sometimes like, ooh, this is gonna be a character?
So I'm gonna cheat and answer the last question really quick. But the answer for this is I don't really. I haven't thought about it yet, but it may subconsciously, I'm assuming, because it's everywhere and I'm always on it. But as far as, I wanted to mention that, of course, when we're writing somebody whose experience is not close to our own, we have to do research, but I am a Black and Latino woman, but I don't speak for all Black and Latino women. Just like if you're the only, one of that kind of person in a classroom, like, you're the only Black kid and it's slavery, everybody's like, so, talking about this. Like, I know we're not a monolith. So I asked my friends, even with wash day, like, I literally sent them a survey to see what their wash day routine was like, because I wanted it as close to a larger experience as possible, and also knowing, like, I can't serve everybody's experience, and that's fine. But as long as I can tell this one as true as I can, then I'm okay with that. And I think it's knowing that too, like, even with, when I'm writing Black characters, I need to do research if it's not, something that's really close to my own experience. So it's the same work we have to do no matter what the person's background is. Of course, if they're outside of our experience, you gotta do some more work, and you have to treat it with a lot more sensitivity as well. I think you really need to go there to like ask people, do research, but also talk to people, because you don't want to do something offensive.
And that reminds me too, I think one of the stumbling blocks that people get into is fear, right? Fear of going and putting themselves in someone else's shoes. Maybe because they don't want to offend, or maybe because that other person deep down scares them. like, it's okay to be afraid, but I think that getting over that leads to what you're talking about, being able to do that.
Now, my last question is actually going to be about how we can start helping other Black women get into the space. Because creating your own, this is like creating your own work, creating your own indie comic is like birthing a kid. Like, I'm not saying it's the same amount of pain, but I'm saying financially, you can feel like it.
Kickstarters for kids.
I know, right?
We're almost there.
But there's all this talk about like, oh, well, it's so difficult out there and I'm not getting support from other people. But on my end, I'm not doing it. I just talk about them and help them. But on my end, whenever I'm doing things like this in other spaces where I'm the only one, I tell people, roll deep. I show up with people and they're on the panel with me or they're with me or they're helping facilitate things and meeting people. How can you do that as creators? How can you help other Black female writers do what you do?
Introduce them to Regine.
Well, I was thinking, Regine didn't have to answer this question because she's got a type of convention that does this.
She did
My
this
first
stuff.
panel, ever years ago in the Bronx, like, put me on. She's amazing.
Oh.
Yeah, she put us on in San Diego at San Diego Comic Con. Like, yeah. Go deep. I mean, that's what it is. Like, find resources. Regine is very good, not just at facilitating like panels and that kind of stuff, but she, Women in Comics International is an amazing resource. The Geek Girl Brunch. I want to say Black Girl Brunch. And I was like, that ain't it. That ain't it. But that's an incredible resource.
And it's all over the country. Like, I've been to
world?
Oh,
International.
Yeah. No, I've been to conventions all over the country. You want to Geek Girl Brunch thing? There's one here too?
Talk to Camilla Zane, who helps people with Kickstarters, people that need this kind of help. I mean, mostly Regine though. Regine is just the doorway. Well, I mean, I'm sure that I would love to hear stories from y'all too, but like, I get people reaching out to me on Twitter all the time, being like, I'm trying to, like, I have this pitch or whatever, do you have a moment? And it's like, all right, as long as you don't expect me to, like, be your editor, like, I have a moment, or I know someone's email that would be happy to talk to you or whatever, so I'm sure you get it all the time.
And I don't want to cut you guys off, but we do have to start the Q&A. So maybe some of this can be answered in the Q&A.
And I do want to also say that we're always looking for artists. We do a lot of our own publications. We produce a lot of things. We're looking for artists. We're looking for writers. And we're out there. I do want to say that you can also, there's an organization based out of Chicago, Ladies Night Anthology. If you're a new writer and you're looking to have your work, they're open to, it's not like you have to be an amazing this or that. They're always looking for writers, they're always looking for artists, and they'll pair you together, and they do these amazing anthologies every year, and they're very much about getting women started in comics. So that's just an amazing resource that I suggest all
does that as well in Chicago.
There are also two databases that are filled with women of color, and that's cartoonistofcolor.org and the Thora Men's Society, and that was created by Sherilyn Eaton, and she's a writer for DC Comics right now.
Yes. So I'm looking for any questions. I think I see a question out there.
Woo-hoo! Come on down!
Anybody wants a question needs to get to the mic quickly, because otherwise we will keep talking.
That ends Stephen Harris?
Oh, but you will leave though.
That's all right.
If anyone has a question, I'm telling you, get to the mic fast, otherwise we're gonna talk. There we go. Hi. You gotta say your name first.
Hi, my name is Shuji. I'm sorry that was very loud.
It's okay. Hi.
Thank you guys all for being here. This is magnificent, and we really appreciate it. You guys all sound and seem phenomenal. I'm gonna actually read the question off the phone because it's on behalf of my friend who's trying to come up here.
That's fine.
How do you balance maintaining comics as an avenue of escapism for Black people while still trying to tell stories that are true to the experiences and relatable? See, it's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. It is a good question.
I just try to stay as authentic as possible to my experience and some of the things that I've been through. Even though like my stories are like kind of fantastical, I do horror and I do science fiction, but there's still adversity in space. There's still adversity in horror, and I try just to touch on that the best that I can while interweaving real life experiences